Good evening. Welcome to Metro Focus. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jack Ford. Satire. In times of political uncertainty and tension, it has been a part of American culture since our great republic was founded. And in our current political climate, the polarity of politics is ever present. President Trump has supporters and detractors who are both equally as passionate about him and his administration. Now, a man who is quite possibly the longest-running Trump satirist is Kurt Andersen. Andersen has teamed up with actor Alec Baldwin to write You Can't Spell America Without Me, from their perceived perspective of President Trump. Within its gold Trump-stamped embossed covers are musings on the president's take on current events, fake news, the media, his ties to Putin, and special counsel Robert Mueller. And we're delighted to have Kurt Andersen joining us now with both a satirical and serious look on our times. Kurt, it's nice to have you here.
Happy to be here.
Now, we mentioned that you have been involved in satire and even parody with regard to Donald Trump for much longer than most people. You go back to the 80s.
Right.
What was the original attraction that you had to him?
Well, in 1986, my partner, Graydon Carter, and I were starting a magazine called Spy Magazine.
One of the great magazines of all time,
Thank you.
by the way.
And Donald Trump was not really well known then. He was getting well known in New York City, and the Spy was a magazine of satirical journalism. We did journalism and lots of investigative pieces on Donald Trump, as well as just making fun of him as much as we could in whatever way we could.
Which is what you did to everybody, by the way.
Which we did to everybody, absolutely. Well, everybody who deserved it, as I would say.
Which kind of means everybody.
Yeah, and he was just this extraordinary character. He was then what he is now, except he wasn't president. He was just this little guy, 40-year-old guy, trying to build buildings in New York. But a braggart, a liar, a bully, all of the things that we've come to know and not love. So he was a character. He was a regular, recurring character in Spy. And as with many of our recurring characters, we invented an epithet for him that we would always try to refer to him as short-fingered vulgarian Donald Trump. It's a phrase and an observation, the short fingers, that then weirdly came back into play when he was running for president, which was astounding. Among the many astounding things that happened while he was running for president, the fact that the length of his fingers became a debate point on a national
television
was. If I had had my mouth full of coffee at the time, I would have done a spit take.
Would you, as somebody who has chronicled him in your own way, literally for decades?
Yeah, 30 years. And I stopped for about 15 or 20 years, but...
And then you were drawn back into it.
Exactly.
Would you have ever anticipated that, even though he would toss out the idea of running for president, did you ever, during that time, actually believe that he would run for president?
No, of course not, because it was a ridiculous idea that this guy would ever be able to jump through the various hoops and get support and get a nomination and become president. No, that was ridiculous.
And get 60-some million people to vote for him.
Correct, exactly. No, it was back when Spy was around in the late 80s, and he would flirt with that idea, and we encouraged it. And we did a national poll saying, no, look, 4% of the people want you to run.
This was great material for you.
It was nothing but great material.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about the book. Yeah. Again, You Can't Spell America Without Me.
Yes.
And the subtitle is The Really Tremendous Inside Story of My Fantastic First Year as President Donald J. Trump.
Yes.
Where'd the idea come from to do an entire book?
Alec
Baldwin,
who, at the end of the presidential campaign, started playing Donald Trump on Saturday Night Live. Was planning to do so 3 times, and then he'd be done with that because, of course, he wasn't going to be elected president. Then he was elected president, and people responded to his caricature of the president-elect strongly. Strongly, by the way, a Trump word. We've been acquaintances and friends for some time, and he came to me and said, "This is a good idea." I mentioned this idea, he said, to some booksellers of doing a Trump memoir, and they all applauded. Like, is this a good idea? And I thought about it and thought how we might be able to do it, and said, "Yeah, I think it's a good idea." He said, "Well, will you do it with me?" And well, we were off to the races.
And the humor in this, and again, people need to realize this is satire. It's humor.
Yes.
It's parody.
Yes.
And it's apparent from the beginning, inside the cover, in your bios on the back. Alec Baldwin says, "No, this is a great idea," and I went to Kurt and I figured this is a way for me to do 5% of the work and get 50% of the credit on the book.
No, and he's been very graciously honest about how this collaboration happened. But he was a great collaborator, and I would write and send him things, and he would say, "Well, and how about this?" And then he could say this. So there's definitely Alec Baldwin lines aplenty in here. But I'm the novelist, and I did most of the writing.
You have, and for better or for worse, because I think there are supporters of Donald Trump who could read this and laugh about it, and see the humor. But you have captured.
Maybe.
You've captured his voice.
I think so.
How did you do that?
I have been a student of his for 30 years, as you say, and then the last couple of years, along with everybody else, been listening to and reading his statements. Then I really spent a couple of weeks, doing nothing but immersing myself in the unedited transcripts of interviews. He has a particular dialect. I constructed a kind of a phrase book and lexicon for myself of here's the adverbs he goes for, here's the weird digressions he does. I learned the language, which in a certain way, because he is so kind of transparent when he's giving interviews, and he suddenly digressed to say, in a completely different direction, to essentially promote himself or say how great he is or say how bad other people are, one starts understanding the rhythms of his language, and through that, really, I think, understanding what's going on inside that mind.
The notion, as we mentioned before, of political satire, political parody, even comic impersonation, has been an important part of our presidential landscape.
Sure.
I go back to the days of JFK. And what was it? Vaughn Meader.
Vaughn Meader. First Family.
Was having a great career.
You're as old as I am.
So yeah, we are. Unfortunately, cut short by the tragic death of President Kennedy. But Vaughn Meader was out there on the Ed Sullivan Show and doing, if you remember, comedy albums that you and I remember.
They were huge hits.
Yeah. Richard Nixon had his impersonators. Richard Nixon made fun of himself appearing on Laugh-In. So it's part of our political tradition. That being said, what sort of reaction are you seeing or hearing or getting from the Trump folks about all? Do they recognize this as part of that great tradition?
Other than one day when Alec and I were promoting this book, and he said that he had heard, as he has, from somebody who worked in the White House closely with the president until fairly recently, that the First Lady, that Melania Trump, was a big fan of Alec's impersonation of the president on Saturday Night Live. That is the reaction we've had, where they came out and said, no, this is totally untrue and certainly not. So that's the reaction we had to that. Otherwise, if any of them have read it, I think they would, as you say, see that this comes perhaps terrifyingly close to how the president talks and thinks.
Well, once again, it's called You Can't Spell America Without Me, the really tremendous inside story of my fantastic first year as president, Donald J. Trump. Kurt, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure. You take care.
Bye.